Okay, we're going to start in the afternoon here. We're going to do the questions from your questions that we've been doing. Also, we're going to look at citation style. That's been something that's been asked a couple times, so I thought I'd go over that, how you actually do footnotes so you can get some training, I guess, or some experience with that. Whether you've done them before or whether you've done, obviously we've done citations, but maybe you haven't used the Chicago style. I'm not sure. I'm sure I put that in the information at the beginning of the course that we're using Chicago citation style, but whatever, we're going to go over today. So first thing, one of the questions was, where are we? So how long before things are normal in the economy? Well, really, they don't know. Nobody knows for sure. This interesting chart, though, shows the different forecasts. So this is a pretty lucrative career if you can get into it. It's forecasting as an economist. It's kind of like being a weatherman, though, I guess, or a weather person. It's anyway, it can be dangerous. Nobody's going to like what you have to say, or you might not get it right, whatever. Anyway, so you can see that all different forms of guesses in terms of where we're going to be and when. A number of years, though, before we catch up to where we would have been, this year and all that kind of stuff. And you also have to take into account there's going to be a lot of changes on how things are done, because some things will never come back and other things will have changed. And, industries like movies and the restaurant business has been hit so hard. Restaurants will come back, the way they were, because that's something that's been around forever. Movies, I don't know. I think they'll come back, but we may see different streams of revenue coming out of movie theaters as they they learn from this, or they have to try to recover. So there's no great answer, but this is some interesting information if you want to look at that. Next one is, what would happen if you changed all private property to public property? So basically what would happen if everything turned into kind of like a communist style government, or I guess that's the best. I don't know if that's the exact question. I have a feeling that kind of is. Well, the problem here, and so, like a lot of people, I see some value in some things communism had stood for. But as a whole, the system is not one that's going to work for a number of reasons, in terms of it won't provide the benefits to the same number of people that capitalism does. And the reason for that is not because capitalism is fair, because it's not fair. Rich, as we can see now, the rich get richer and the poor don't move, or sometimes get poorer. But the poor are better off in a capitalist system, because the thing that private property does is that ownership gives people incentive, right? Incentive to do different things, to innovate, to find new ways to make money. Under a communist or a egalitarian society where nobody owns any property, and everybody shares in everybody's wealth or productivity, we don't work that way as a species, in terms of people aren't going to put in their best efforts unless they are going to benefit from them. And that's not everybody, but that's a lot of people. You have a lot of people that innovate things because they want to make money, or they innovate things because they want to make things better, maybe for a certain segment of the population, maybe not. But the point is, without that incentive, the only incentive left is how to cheat the system rather than how to make the system better. And so under collectivism, and that was like farms, for instance, in the communist system, So collectivist farms were where you had X number of farms were in a collective group, and those ones were responsible for a certain amount of food grown. Anything in excess of that was just taken as well, and it didn't benefit the people that put the work in to grow more food than they were allotted to have to grow. So there's no incentive for them to do better than they've previously done, because if they do that, then their quota gets raised and they have to continue to produce that level, and they don't see any benefit from it. They don't necessarily get more food. They don't get more anything out of it. So you're really eliminating that incentive for people to do a better job and to change the way they do things. Capitalism rewards people for being selfish and being greedy in certain ways, but it does provide incentives for people that innovate and change. And that's just, to me, that's the core thing that would be the problem with making everything public. While I do believe that certain institutions need to be delivered by the government because private industry is built on profits, I don't think you can. I think that, for instance, healthcare is a terrible thing to privatize, because for-profit hospitals are no longer about patients; they're about making profits, right? So they're not going to give certain benefits or certain treatments to certain people because it's going to cost too much. And that right off the bat is not what the medical system or the healthcare system should be about. Same thing with education. You tie dollars and private money to education, and you suddenly get people with more money get better education because they can pay for access. I know those things exist even within public systems, but it would be much, much worse if you had that in those kinds of systems. So there are institutions I don't think that privatization is warranted, and that's where the betterment of the working of the healthcare system and the education system is for the benefit of the society as a whole, and so it doesn't do us any good if one group does better than another group, that kind of thing. Moving on. How do we know what are the markers of a successful economy? Depends. If you're asking about it in terms of political questions, it could be anything. If you're politically tied to unemployment rate, then that's your mark of success. If you're tied to inflation, that's your mark of success. Investment, trade surplus, there's all kinds of ways to say your economy is successful. For the most part, though, we're looking at GDP, right, which is basically the sum of what your economy produces, and that is the standard answer for how do you measure the success of an economy. And then there's a difference between GDP and real GDP, and real GDP takes into account things like inflation. So it shows you, once you take away all the negatives or all the, I guess in a way you could think of it as expenses, how much did your economy actually grow? So as you can see, any line that continues to go up is a good thing. Obviously COVID and you have depressions and stuff make growth go down and your economy shrink. That's bad, and then eventually it'll go back up. So that's the answer, is that GDP really is the base measurement for growth. Okay, so now moving to just the basic way of how to do, so even how to do footnotes, because footnotes or endnotes are both part of the Chicago style, and that's what I'd like you to do. So here you have a sentence. It always goes at the end of the punctuation, by the way. So at the end of the sentence, if you have more than one footnote, you put them both at the end of the same sentence that they apply to. You don't put one in the middle of the sentence and then one at the end. They both go at the end. So at the end of the sentence, past the what do you call that thing? It just the period, but punctuation. That's it. So I'm on an iPad here, so it's a little bit different. I already forgot how I did it. Oh yeah, I pressed the plus. You would go to insert is probably the headline, and then you see footnote, and it'll automatically give you a superscript number, and then it'll go to the bottom, and you plug in the information at the bottom. This is not proper. I'll show you what they are proper. Okay, so that's that one. And then you have okay, there's another sentence. We're going to have another citation. We're going to do it again. So notice it's now 2. Now, if you have the same citation 2 times in a row, you get to put the cool word I bid, which basically just means same as above, right? One of those Latin phrases. So yeah, you end up with, there's 1, there's 2. And if you added another one, I have a period that's floating there. Doesn't matter. It would be 3, and then it would go to the next page, and then it would go back to 1, so on and so forth. So that's the way you actually put them into the document. Okay, looking at, this is the link that I provided in the announcements. This is OWL Purdue University, very good example of how to use Chicago and all the other ones too, if you're looking at how to use APA and MLA and all that stuff, depending on your course. This is a good one for every one of them. So first of all, you could plug in your different types of things that you want. So if you had a website, you just paste in there and it would give you your citation. But I want to look here at the sample paper. It's not great on an iPad because it ends up being right here in this little piece here. So it'll show you exactly how to do title pages, right? And then it'll also show you, right, so there is your footnote, and there's what it looks like on the bottom. Okay, so that would be the example of a book, for instance. And then it even shows you so you can flip through all of this and it would have different examples of things. How long is this? Okay, wow. I was going to say, let's go. Okay, here we are. Here's how your bibliography works. And again, it has your information on how to do that properly and how to order it and all that kind of stuff. Okay, so use the link to the Purdue OWL site. Check out the sample paper to get your idea of the orientation of how it actually goes on a page. All right, hopefully that helps. And have a good one.